Hey folks, here OS Reviews. You're watching our video first look and a quick review of the Xiaomi Mi USB Type-C noise-canceling earphones. These retail for a tad under $40, and what's interesting is not only is it using the new Type-C standard, which is becoming more and more common for smartphones in 2017, losing the traditional headphone port, it also features integrated active noise canceling. So it's kind of like Bose headphones back in the day, where you can plug them in. If you're at an airport, it's going to reduce the sound of engines and lower frequencies, allowing you to listen to your music in peace or rest and sleep more easily. They're collaborating with companies that have more experience in the audio industry. For instance, on these, you can see a smaller sub-branding on the bottom here of the box, and on other particular earphones, they've also gone with various other partners just to make sure that the sound really is correct. Because these are essentially digital earphones, they can technically have, again, more clean and more crisp sound reproduction. But aside from that, they also pass the high-res audio certification from Sony. So it has a good enough frequency range, it has good enough kind of detail that you can use it for playing back high-res audio samples, music, etc., to really enjoy the content with these earphones. So otherwise, the active noise cancellation has a range of 50 to 2000 hertz. It's made out of a titanium plating and metal, so it feels quite solid. Now, as a USB Type-C design, it will work with many smartphones. However, it's only guaranteed to work with Xiaomi phones for features like active noise canceling and using the inline remote control, things like that. For other devices, it might still work for sound, but for ANC, it becomes a little bit more tricky and requires more testing. So phones that it's compatible with for sure include the Xiaomi 5, 5S, 5S Plus, 6, Mix, and the Note 2, as well as the Note 3. So that's just something really quickly to keep in mind. The cable length is 1.25 meters long, frequency range 20 to 40,000 hertz, independence of 32 ohms. This is protected not only for transit, but you can also wrap it back into place if you want to easily store it somewhere or take it into a bag and travel with you. Over here, we also have a secondary box for the accessories. That includes the classic Xiaomi soft carrying case if you don't want to use the larger one. It's too bulky or it takes too much time to roll up. It's a soft microfiber cloth, and there's also some spare silicone tips to get a more comfortable fit. Down below here, there is an instruction manual that is actually documented both in Chinese and in English this time. So this is a product that is released also officially overseas globally. We have the soft silicone inside that keeps everything organized, and there's also additional extra small, small, and large silicone tips, again, for a more comfortable fit. Taking a look at the design of the earbuds first, you can tell they have this really interesting ergonomic shape that fits super snugly into your ears. That's important because for noise canceling to work, the first part is of course having a tight seal between your ear canals as well as the soft touch rubber material they're using here. It has a slightly oval shape to the drivers. You can see it's not completely round. It's almost pushing upwards a little bit, which is interesting. Really comfortable in terms of, in my testing so far, I could wear these for hours and hours and not really notice that they're in there. The build quality is also, again, very good. I think that it looks classy as well. Even though it's titanium, it kind of looks like ceramic. So if you have a Xiaomi Mi Mix, it's basically the same color and tone. So looks very discreet and elegant. It of course also shares a lot of DNA in terms of its overall looks with the previous Mi HD Pro. These are using, of course, traditional 3.5mm jacks, but you can see that how the shapes as well as the overall bumps look quite similar, even if the material choices are slightly different. Another thing that I immediately noticed is whereas the previous headphones almost always used rubber, these are actually using a braided nylon, as you can see here. So that has some extra durability for the wire, and that means that, again, when you're plugging it in and out of your devices, it should last you for a little bit longer as well. Otherwise, one thing I'm really impressed about is how small the controller module is. It's made out of machined aluminum, has the Xiaomi logo on one side. There's just a very small switch for turning on active noise canceling, and a blue LED will light up to tell you that the ANC feature is on, and afterwards you can remap the buttons for pausing, playing your music, answering phone calls, and turning the volume up and down. What's really cool is since USB Type-C provides power, the entire earphones don't require any additional power source like a battery for the ANC to work. As a result, everything is really compact and small, so it's quite a smart design. And otherwise, the other USB Type-C tip you can see here is just very typical, nothing too special special to write home about. Overall, I would say that USB Type-C headphones, because the industry is still catching on to Type-C as a standard, are still really expensive, especially if you look at mainstream options produced maybe by Google. The options for the Google Pixel phones can cost for $150, and they don't even have really outstanding sound. So as a result, the fact that Xiaomi is able to bring a pair of quality, both in construction, fit, and having ANC at such a low price point is, again, really a testament to their engineering abilities. All right, so next I want to talk really briefly about the partnerships that Xiaomi has chosen. So these Type-C earphones, as I talked about, has a collaboration between Xiaomi and a company called 10 Lab. I'm not too familiar with this company, so I did a quick kind of search online, and indeed they are kind of this hi-fi kind of professional grade in-ear monitor manufacturer, and you can tell some of their other products aren't cheap either. Of course, they're cheap compared to maybe Bang & Olufsen and maybe Bose, but in terms of non-mainstream in-ear monitors, they actually have a pretty decent, well, looks like construction and rating. So you can think of them as kind of like artisanal brand that is designing products for audiophiles, and as a result, it makes sense that Xiaomi chose, a partner that has much more experience than they do in terms of making sound. However, I also want to point out that the aforementioned HD Pro earphones that we also reviewed had a different partnership, and these were manufactured in conjunction with One More. So One More has gained quite a lot of publicity recently for making the triple driver and even quad driver earphones. In my opinion, One More's earphones, based on not only this but separate products that I've heard, and if these are a reflection of what 10 Labs products sound like, I think that One More is still going to have a slight edge in terms of the overall sound reproduction. So I was a little bit surprised because, again, considering that these are using USB Type-C and not 3.5mm jacks, they should theoretically give you cleaner sound because it's using a digital signal that can eliminate a lot of the distortions and kind of static that is more common when you're using kind of an analog signal passed through 3.5mm. So I really expected the sound in a way to be even better on these, but actually they are quite similar to the HD Pros, and in some ways it's not quite as dramatic sounding as the HD Pros. So the bass is quite punchy, but at the same time I felt that they weren't quite as strong as on the HD Pro. So if I was listening to electronic music with lots of bass drops, lots of drum beats, the HD Pro, at least the impression that I had when I was wearing them as my daily driver for the past few months was, especially the first time that I wore them, was really being shocked and taken aback by how powerful the drivers are for such a small size. These, for me at least, maybe I've gotten used to Xiaomi's kind of sound signature or something like that. For me, it didn't have quite as dramatic of an effect when I first tried them out, but they still sounded very good. They sound quite clean, and in terms of vocals, in terms of instrumentals, and of course dialogue, when you're listening to speech, they do a great job. When you're ready to use it, simply plug it into the USB Type-C port on your Xiaomi device, and it will be instantly recognized as an audio source. You can see the headphone indication logo on the top right-hand corner will flash. With that being said, there's not going to be an additional pop-up screen like some of previous headphones that use 3.5mm connectors, where Xiaomi would give you a screen and say, it's recognized that you've plugged in an HD Pro or a piston, and because you've plugged in a piston, you can then reconfigure or change the sound a little bit and tweak it. On these, there's no additional pop-up, so that's something to really quickly point out. But afterwards, you're immediately able to listen to music, and furthermore, you can use the active noise canceling. So if we switch this to on, you can see the blue LED turn on. That means the feature has been activated. The active noise canceling actually works surprisingly well, especially for such small earphones. The technology in ANC has definitely been improved upon in the past 5-6 years. So just looking back, previously you really needed bulky, large, over-the-ear style headphones to block out sufficient sound, but these do a really good job of blocking out almost 70 to 80% of background noise in my testing. Just walking around in the city as well as being near an airport, I could really focus much more on the music, and almost all the sounds of the engines were completely turned off. So having this ability built on in, and also for it to not really detract from the overall size and form factor, is great. Since these are hi-fi earphones, they're really meant for exclusive listening, as well as in this case with ANC for transport. They're not meant as sports earphones necessarily. For sports and athletes, maybe getting Bluetooth earphones would be the better choice because it doesn't have any wires, so you won't be tangled. Furthermore, it also has a larger rubber wing on the outside that will prevent them from falling out through vigorous movement. These, because of the ergonomic shape, already stay in place super well. Even when I was walking around, they didn't fall out through a few hours of walking. But at the same time, I can definitely see where a larger wing could be helpful, especially if you are performing larger movements and actions. So overall, that's pretty much it as far as the Xiaomi ANC USB Type-C earphones are concerned. Just to kind of recap the sound once more, I would say that they sound very detailed. They have not necessarily a warm sound, but a very clean sound overall. So it packs a good amount of bass, perhaps not quite as heavy as the HD Pro, and also it gives you a good sense of depth and does well even with mids as well as highs. So it really sounds quite good for both music as well as for watching movies. And of course, the ANC is a great feature. At this price point, under $40, it's actually an incredible value just because essentially they're squeezing in high-res audio, ANC, so active noise canceling, and USB Type-C as this new standard into a price that just having one of these features would be already quite incredible. So Xiaomi's doing a great job as always in terms of giving you great value. If you do need the absolute best audio experience, then perhaps the HD Pros, in my opinion at least, maybe I'm just used to it more, sounds slightly better just because of that extra bass, I think, and in some areas I think that it has a little bit more warmth. But at the same time, if you're looking for active noise cancellation, you're looking for Type-C as a new standard going forward, then these are probably a better choice for long-term investment. So thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. This has been the Xiaomi USB Type-C active noise cancelling earbuds.